Anyone who owns a propane fire pit will tell you they're great for ambiance, but they actually don't supply a ton of heat when you're sitting around them. So in this video, I decided to make a heat deflector that will hopefully help you to enjoy these colder winter months a little bit better. With COVID, they're asking everyone to socialize a little bit differently, and so hopefully this will allow you to extend your outdoor time. We've been using them for a couple of weeks, and it actually works really well, both at our house and our friend's house. So I hope you enjoy the video. I also hope that you stay safe and warm in these coming winter months. And if you do, please hit the like and subscribe button. So the first thing I have to do is cut my piece of aluminum down to size using this metal shear. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to say that I'm not a metal fabricator, so if you have any thoughts or comments about how I could make the process better, please leave them in the comments down below. So using this metal shear is probably only the fourth or fifth time I've ever used it, and I've never been formally trained on it. I basically just used the method of trial and error, but I will say it is really fun to use. I'm using 18 gauge aluminum, and I'm cutting it down to about 26 by 26, and using the machine is very satisfying the first couple of times. And yeah, again, any comments, please let me know. Now that I have the aluminum sheet cut to size, I'm going to measure 1.25 inches from each corner, and this will be where I'm going to bend the metal at. And so I measure each one to make sure that I'm at the exact, I'm at 1.25 inches from each corner there. And then what I'll do is once I have that position marked, I'll drill through the aluminum. So when I go to bend the edges, hopefully it won't rip the aluminum, and hopefully it'll make the corners look a little bit better. I've never tried this method before. Before I was just pounding the corners together, and so I'm trying to make my process a little bit better. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, I can't remember exactly, from each side from the corner. So this way I'm going to trim the aluminum in a circular fashion. You can see here I use this cylinder, this black pipe, as kind of a cheater, and I will come through with the clipper, the snips, and I will clip out the round edge. Now I could have eyeballed this, but I was trying to make it look a little bit more professional this time around than some of the previous models that I'd done before. And then now you can see that I'm snipping from that corner right to the hole that I drilled. I'll repeat this 3 more times to make sure that each one is approximately the same. Now you'll see here that there are actually 2 pieces of metal that I'm working with. I was making 2 of these at the same time, and so you can see that there are 2 pieces. I was just trying to focus on the production of one, but it got a little complicated with the filming since I was trying to save as much time as I could while I was building both of them. Now that my edges were set, it's time to actually bend the metal. Now I'm using this bending device, which I'm not sure of what the machine is called, so I really apologize. But you can see here, I'm clamping the metal lined up with those holes that I drilled. Okay, and so on this machine, you actually have to clamp both sides down. And again, I've never been formally trained, so I was just trial and error for me. And now, once it's clamped in there, you push the device, and as you can see in the bottom corner, I know it's a little fuzzy, I was bending it to 60 degrees. All right, I am 100% sure that there are much better ways to do this, and you'll see some of the flaws and things I had to work around after the second bend. So I bent, the north and the south, if you will, the first time through. Again, the holes were already lined up, so all I had to do was get it positioned in there, clamped in, bend it to 60. Now this is where the problem came in. Because I had bent both sides before, I had to take half the edges and bend them back. You can kind of see where my finger just was. It will lock it in, and so when I bend this to 60 degrees, it's going to bend that, and I'll have to re-bend it back. So I took the pliers, bent that more out of the way so it would be a little bit easier to bend, and again brought it to 60 degrees. using this machine is a lot of fun, and it's really satisfying, and it's so easy to use. And if you have access to one, I highly recommend you give it a try sometime. So now that the metal is bent, I'm going to have to take the four corners and put them together from the ones that I bent away and the ones that the machine bent away. And so to do this, I just used a pair of pliers. The first thing I did was snip off a little excess aluminum, and then I used pliers to bend the aluminum back into place, which is one of the reasons why I like the aluminum so much, because it's so easy to work with. Then to put those together, I drill a pilot hole into the aluminum going through both little tabs. Then I'm going to actually insert a rivet, and I'm going to rivet those ends together. Now, everything that I use here is aluminum or stainless steel, and so the rivets that I'm using are actually aluminum. And I've got to make sure that you purchase the right color. The first ones I bought were actually brown. I didn't like the way that looked, so I went back and got some aluminum ones. Now, this is only, again, maybe the 5th or 6th time I've ever used a riveter, and so it was actually quite fun to use, and it worked really well. It held the corners much better together than just hammering them together. I hope that in the future I can learn how to weld aluminum together, but until then, these rivets actually worked really well. Now, the riveter that I'm using is pretty old, and so I don't know if the new ones are a little bit easier to use. This was just one I found in an old tool cabinet, and it was a really cool experience to learn how to do this. The next thing I'm going to do is use a bandsaw to cut my legs. Now, for the legs, I am using something called aluminum extrusion, sometimes referred to as 80-20 or T-slots. This is an expensive option, but they're made out of aluminum, so I feel very confident having them next to a fire, and it will allow me to be a little more versatile in how I make it a little less scratch resistant on the fire pit, and it'll allow me to put on wind deflectors that are somewhat adjustable. Now, I'm using this industrial bandsaw. You could use a portable bandsaw or a just a hacksaw to cut through if you were very, very careful. So the next thing I need to do is drill and tap the bottoms of the aluminum extrusion, and Klein makes these really nice drill and taps. Now, there wasn't actually a ton of drilling, it was just more tapping here, and I used a 12-24 on here because that fit the center hole in the aluminum extrusion. And these work really well. These Klein tools, these combo kits, I think are really, really nice. Now, when you're drilling aluminum, you can put on aluminum cutting liquid, or you can use WD-40 to make it go a little smoother. Since I was only doing 8, I didn't use any liquids. Then I just used some Allen head 12-24 screws, stainless steel because I couldn't find them in aluminum for the bottom, so it would cut down on scratches. Now, this is where the aluminum extrusion really comes into play. Basically, I couldn't find a carriage bolt that I wanted to use for this, and so I just found a stainless steel screw that fit into those slots, and then I'm going to tighten each screw down with a bolt. Now, they do make very specific screws for these, but they only came with a zinc coating, and I didn't want the zinc to be by the fire. So you can see here that I'm lining these up and tightening them down so that screw will stay in place. And then once I have it positioned properly, I can go ahead and use a wing nut to put on the wind deflector and be able to adjust the height of the wind deflector using it. So if I want it on the bottom, I can, or if I want to move it to the top, I can do that as well. Now I just need to measure where I want to put the holes to attach the legs to. So there's a couple different mathematical ways to do it. I just measured halfway through, then took the distance that I needed, measured that by half, and measured from there on each side, and that would give me the perfect place to drill the holes. Drilling through aluminum does make a little bit of a mess, and it can throw some metal around, so be really careful. I forgot my safety glasses when I went onto the job to actually drill the holes, so I closed my eyes once I knew the drill was going. Also know that you don't want to drill this. You want to pick up all the metal that you can afterwards. Now I'm going to attach the holes with the 12-20 screws, and again it's Allen wrench, so I just drill these up. You can see the wing nuts, I'm having them face the same way on the same plane. So, you know, if you say both facing north on there, It's really cool. And you can see here now that I'm measuring the distance between the wing nuts so I can drill the hole on the shield. So there's the wind deflector, if you will, right there. So I'll drill the holes just one size larger than the screws. Now, for those screws, I did use 1/4 inch, so I went the next size up after 1/4 inch so they could go in there. Then I'm going to drill the holes after I get them marked. Again, making sure that where I drill, no one will be walking barefoot for a while, because I did my best to try to clean up all the aluminum, but there it goes. So you put this on there, and then you put the, get everything lined up. I had to adjust the bolts a little bit, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to use the aluminum extrusion, so it has the ability to be adjustable. And then once I get that on there, I take the wing nuts, tighten them up, and this thing is ready to help you guys stay warm in the winter. So if you liked the video and you can use something like this to extend your outdoor time during the COVID period, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the like and subscribe button. And as always, stay safe and warm. And I hope you enjoyed the video.